Hello. Hello. Good afternoon. Good to see all of you again, but unfortunately today I'm not able to hold a physical class. That is why I have prepared this recording in advance for you. But I must say it's good to have all of you back for our second lecture for BIS 503. Last week we set the foundations in terms of what our understanding of information systems should be. That foundation is supposed to shape our understanding of what we're going to do today and the weeks ahead. Before we dive in, I just want to take a minute to let you understand that in this lecture, our focus is basically to understand where in our organizations, our various organizations, or how technology is going to genuinely set us apart from others. And so to do that, today's lecture will cover four major areas. Today's lecture largely centering on IT strategy, competitive advantage, and data as a strategic asset. We will cover four major issues. And as we proceed, you will notice that each one of the issues we are going to discuss will build on the previous one. First, we will discuss strategic frameworks. Here, we will revisit some tools you may have gone through as part of strategy courses during your undergraduate studies. So in the first part, as part of the strategic frameworks, we are going to be looking at Porter's 5 forces model. Then we'll also look at the value chain model. Then we'll look at the resource-based view. But we are going to be looking at this in the context of the digital environment. And these frameworks will help us understand how organizations can use information systems to create and sustain competitive advantage. In the second part, we'll move to what we call digital disruption. Here, we will examine why companies like Amazon, companies like Uber, companies like Netflix have transformed their entire industries. And then we'll discuss how established organizations can respond to to various digital challenges. In the third part, we'll focus on IT governance. Here, we'll argue that having good technology is not enough. And so organizations must ensure that technology investments align very well with business objectives so that it can create value. And when that happens, we'll say that technology and the business objectives are properly aligned and governed. And so we'll introduce here some governance frameworks such as COBIT and the IT balance scorecard. And then finally, we'll discuss data as strategy. Here, our focus will be to argue that in today's digital economy, data has become one of an organization's most valuable assets. And so we will explore issues regarding analytics, we will explore issues regarding data monetization, governance, ethics, and how organizations transform data into competitive advantage. And so I hope that by the end of today's session, you should be able to see these four issues not as separate topics, but see them as part of the same story. The same story in the sense that strategy tells us where to compete, digital disruption explains how industries are changing, IT governance ensures that technology investments create value. And then last but not the least, data strategy provides the fuel for innovation and competitive advantage. So throughout today's lecture, I will encourage you to think about your own organizations. Don't just stick to asking the question in terms of what does the theory in this particular lecture say. You should be asking yourself, how does this apply to where I work? And I believe if you do this, it will be easy for you to understand what we are discussing in class. And this is actually where the real learning takes place. So before we hit the ground running, I would like us to be clear about what I expect you to take away from today's lecture. These are not just topics we are going to discuss. I see them as what? Competencies that I expect you to develop as managers, as professionals, and as decision makers. And so by the end of today's session, you should be able to do several important things. For instance, first of all, you should be able to use Porter's 5 forces and the value chain to analyze how organizations compete in the digital economy, and also use it to identify where information systems can create competitive advantage. Then secondly, you should be able to apply the resource-based view or the VRIN framework. You can use this framework to determine whether an organization's IT resources or its digital capabilities can provide a sustainable competitive advantage. In other words, you should be able to distinguish between technology that is simply useful and then technology that is truly what? Strategic. There are two different things. Technology that is useful and technology that is what? Strategic. And then the third part, you should also be able to understand the difference between organizations that are born digital. Organizations we refer to as born digital organizations, such as Uber or Netflix. So you see that these organizations, they exist in virtual form only. Mm. And traditional organizations that are, you should also look at this, compare this, the born digital organizations such as Uber and the traditional organizations that are undergoing what? Digital transformation. And last week we looked at the concept of digital transformation. More importantly, you should be able to evaluate the different strategic responses that are available to even established firms. Then the fourth part, you should be able to explain what IT governance is. At the end of today's lecture, you should be able to explain what IT governance is and also understand how frameworks such as the COVID framework, the IT balance scorecard, how these frameworks can help organizations to ensure that their technology investments are aligned with what? With business objectives, and then they can deliver measurable value. Then the fifth part will be you should be able to also appreciate why data. Last week, we looked at the concept of data, and I believe that now we all understand what we mean by data. So the fifth part of this lecture, one of the outcomes is for you to be able to appreciate why data has become one of the most valuable strategic assets in modern organizations. Very important. Then sixth, you should be able to critically evaluate different data monetization strategies. When you are able to evaluate this, you should be able to recognize the importance of ethics, privacy, and governance. And as we go on, I'll explain some of these things. It is all important because as future managers, it is not only enough for you to ask a question like, can we use this data? You must also ask, should we use it? And how do we use it responsibly? So having data alone is not enough. You should be able to use the data and use the data in a responsible way. And then finally, and perhaps we can consider this as one of the most important things. You should be able to apply all these frameworks to analyze a real business situation. That's what the focus of today's lecture is going to be about. Now, before we start, I want to share a quote with you, and I want us to all reflect on this quote. This quote by Nicholas Carr, which indicates that IT doesn't matter unless it creates capabilities that competitors cannot match. Let us reflect on this statement by Nicholas Carr. In 2003, Nicholas Carr published a very influential article, and the title of the article was IT Doesn't Matter. At the time the paper was published, it generated a lot of debate because many people believed information technology was becoming a commodity. And then at first glance, many people saw his statement as very surprising. Why would you say that IT doesn't matter? Why would you say that? They found it to be very what? Surprising. After all, in today's digital environment, we are all living in a digital world. So how can you say that IT doesn't matter? But if you look carefully at Nicholas Carr's statement, this is what he was really arguing about. He wasn't saying that technology is not important. Instead, he was arguing that technology that everyone can buy and use in exactly the same way cannot by itself create competitive advantage. So we liken it to electricity. The fact that everyone has got access to electricity, then we say that you cannot use electricity to do what? To create competitive advantage because everyone can buy it and use it in exactly the same way. Now, think about it this way. Most organizations today, like Microsoft Office, Zoom, and other maybe ERP systems, if everyone has access to the same technologies, then it means that simply owning the technology doesn't matter because everybody has got it. Are you getting it? Then simply owning the technology doesn't make one organization better than the other. There must be something else. Because we should all be asking ourselves, if everybody can have access to technology, then it means technology should not matter. The question we should be asking ourselves is, where does the competitive advantage come from? The competitive advantage will come from how the organizations are able to use the technology. So now, as we speak, technology is easy to acquire, easy access, adoption, easy. Everything is easy. But how organizations are able to use the technology is now what is distinguishing organization A from organization B. All of this comes from one thing, how organizations are able to build capabilities that their competitors cannot easily copy. That is the distinguishing factor. So, for example, Amazon's competitive advantage is not because it owns computers. It is because it has built world-class logistics, recommendation algorithms, and even maybe, let's say, customer analytics. And even if you look at MTN's advantage is not simply mobile money. That's not their advantage. It is their unique transaction data they have been able to accumulate or gather. The customer trust and the financial services, especially the mobile money system that they have that has evolved around the mobile around the organization. Now let's look at Google too. Google's advantage is not the internet. That's not their advantage. They have several decades of search data. Where people, when you search things, many of us have used, billions of people have used Google. So their advantage is the data they have been able to gather. They have been able to accumulate the AI models they have been able to build. And this is why Nicholas Carr mentioned that IT doesn't matter because everyone can get it. So we want to re-emphasize the fact that IT really doesn't matter unless it matters only when it creates capabilities that our competitors cannot match. And that's exactly what today's lecture is about. Throughout today's session, we will use different strategic frameworks to answer one fundamental question. And that fundamental question is, how can organizations transform ordinary technology into extraordinary competitive advantage? That's basically what we are interested in doing. So for us at the School of Business, how have we leveraged on technology to create a competitive advantage? Every university that is running an MBA program, they have access to using Zoom, they have access to using the internet. But what we have done is that we have ensured that when the fact that we all have access to the same technology, we are going a step further to make sure that when our students are unable to attend our lectures physically, they can join by Zoom. If they are not able to join by Zoom, they can go to YouTube and watch the YouTube videos about our lectures. All right. Let's continue. Now, let's begin the first part of today's lecture, which focuses on strategic frameworks. And I mentioned earlier that some of you may remember Porter's five forces model, the value chain, and other things from your undergraduate studies. Our focus is not just the strategy per se, but how information systems can be used to strengthen strategy in the digital age. So the first thing I want us to look at, we'll begin with the most influential strategic framework in business. And this is the Porter's five forces model. Many of you have encountered this model before. But today, my aim is to let us view it through a digital lens. So Michael Porter argued that every industry is shaped by competitive forces. This was his argument. Traditionally, these forces, we say, they change slowly. However, digital technologies have fundamentally altered or changed almost every one of the five forces. And which are the five forces? These five forces are: one, threat of new entrants, buyer power, threat of substitutes, supplier power, and then rivalry. Now, I want us to take it one after the other, because in many industries, information systems have been used to rewrite the rules of what? The rules of competition. Technology has changed the rules of competition. Now, taking on the first one, threat of new entrants. Traditionally, entering industries such as banking or entering a retail business or even transportation business required what? Required huge investments. And this investment can be seen in the type of buildings you need to put up, the kind of equipment you need to procure, and even the distribution network you need to rely on. Today, digital technologies have lowered many of those barriers. And because of that, it is easy for companies to go into certain organizations to venture into certain industries. It is easy for organizations to venture into certain industries because technology has lowered the barriers. Now, I want you to think about fintech companies, financial technology companies. A company can now offer payment services or digital banking through mobile apps without necessarily opening hundreds of physical branches. That means that the barrier to enter has been lowered. And it is lowered by what? Technology. Technology makes it much easier for new competitors to enter what? Established markets. Then the second one, buyer power. You see, digital technologies have also shifted power towards customers. And in marketing, we always say that the customer is what? King. Today, before buying almost anything, customers compare prices online. You will check online. You will check Gigi, check Donaton, check Jumia. And then whilst you are doing this, you are also reading reviews, you are watching product demonstrations, and you are asking for or looking for recommendations on social media. As a result of this, businesses can no longer rely on information asymmetry because customers are well informed than ever. And this means that organizations must compete on not necessarily price, on quality.
It's 7 o'clock.
They must compete on quality, they must compete on service, and compete on what? Customer experience. Then the third one is what? Threat of substitutes. Threat of substitute. Digital products are replacing traditional products. And many of us may not have heard of the term digital good. A digital good is simply the kind of good or product when you buy it, the product is delivered to you instantly. For instance, if you pay for a music video, you can download it instantly. When you buy credit, you get it instantly. So this kind of products, we refer to them as what? Digital goods or digital products. Now, if you also look at streaming services, streaming services. If you are old enough, you realize that if you needed to watch a film or a video 10 years ago or 15 years ago, you needed a cassette, a VHS to be able to play. But streaming services have replaced the DVDs, the VHS, and what have you. Now, the lesson is that technology has not only improved the existing products. What technology has done is that it has replaced the existing product entirely. Then we also have supplier power. Technology has also changed relationships between suppliers or relationships with suppliers. So, for instance, if you look at digital procurement systems, electronic auctions, or even supply chain systems, organizations have access to many suppliers around the world. People are in turmoil, but they are able to procure things from China because of digital procurement systems, which makes access to suppliers very, very easy. Then the fifth force is rivalry, industry rivalry. Also, digital technologies have intensified competition among between organizations because innovation happens much more faster than before because of digital technology. So today, organizations are able to compete not only on price alone, but they are also able to compete on customer experience. They are able to compete on digital services, data, speed, and even innovation. Now, if you look at the five forces that Porter put forward, the most important message from it is that information systems don't just influence one competitive force. Information systems are reshaping all the five forces simultaneously. And that is why digital transformation is no longer simply about automating processes. Digital transformation is now about changing the competitive dynamics of our industries. And so, as managers, as professionals, the question you should always ask is, how is technology changing the competitive forces in my field, in my industry? And how should my organization respond to it? Now, this brings us to, after looking at the Porter's forces model, I also want us to look at another concept by Porter, which he referred to as the value chain, the Porter's value chain. But we are going to look at it from a digital perspective. The value chain model simply explains how an organization can create value for its customers through a series of what? A series of activities. Now, this series of activities can be classified into two. We have the support activities, and then we have the primary activities. The support activities are there. The support activities will involve administration, marketing, and what have you, and payroll, and what have you. But if you also look at the primary activities are those that are listed here: inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and then services. Now, looking at it carefully again, if you look at the top, we have the support activities. This include the IT infrastructure of the organization, the HR systems, the procurement technology, and then maybe research and development and knowledge management systems. Looking at it carefully, you should realize that although customers don't see this directly, the top part, they don't see it directly, the top part provides the foundation that enables the entire organization to be able to operate. You cannot order from suppliers, that is inbound logistics. You cannot order from suppliers when the IS infrastructure is not robust. So what I now want us to do is to move to the primary activities and look at it one after the other. So for instance, inbound logistics, what does it mean? Inbound logistics basically focuses on receiving and managing inputs when we buy from our suppliers, receiving the inputs. Technologies can be used to enhance the supply chain process, right? So technology can be used to enhance the supply chain process so that we can track real-time supplies that are coming from our supplier organizations. Organizations will be able to monitor in real time inventory. They'll be able to understand what is causing delays, and through that they'll be able to improve coordination with what? With suppliers. Then next is what? Operations. Operations is where inputs are what? Are basically transformed into products or services. So if you have ERP systems, which are enterprise resource planning systems, if you have robotic process automation systems or process mining systems, all of this can be used to improve efficiency. They can reduce errors in the manufacturing process and even streamline your business processes. Then we also have outbound logistics. Here, outbound logistics involves delivering products or services to what? To customers. And you can use technology to improve your order management systems, your delivery platforms, and many other things. Then we also have marketing and sales. In marketing and sales, organizations can use CRM, customer relationship management systems. They can leverage on AI to conduct intelligent pricing, and they can also use digital analytical tools and even rely on technology to ensure that they have personalized marketing strategies tailored towards specific customers. Through this, they will be able to better understand customers and then what? Increase sales. And then finally, we have services. Service focus largely on what? Supporting customers after the sale. After sale services, using customer portals, using chatbots, and other predictive maintenance approaches, which can be used to improve customer satisfaction whilst what reducing service cost. Now, if you look at this carefully, the key message is that information systems can be used to create value across the entire organization and not just in the IT department. That's basically what we are saying. So by this particular framework, we are saying that technology can be used to improve the procurement of materials, supplies, the manufacturing, the delivery, the marketing, and even the services. And not just technology should not be limited to only the IT department. Now, we have just seen how information systems can, can reshape competition across an industry. Now, I want us to look at something a little bit different. And the question is, does every technology investment automatically create competitive advantage? If you go and invest in any technology, are we saying that automatically it will lead to competitive advantage? The answer is no. It is not always that when you invest in technology, it will automatically lead to creating competitive advantage. So you have to understand that just because you spend millions on new systems, eh, just because you spend millions on new systems, it doesn't mean your organization will do better than its competitors. Because if everyone can buy the same technology, then it simply becomes a cost of doing business. It will become normal. Now, the emphasis here in this particular slide, the resource-based view or the RBV, the emphasis here is how we can determine whether an IT resource can provide a sustainable competitive advantage. We want to, here our focus is to find out whether the IT investment we want to embark on can provide a sustainable competitive advantage. And we can do that by using the VRIN framework. And so I want us to go through it one after the other. We'll go through each element. The first element is valuable, and that is the first question. And the first question we should ask is, does this technology create value? Does it reduce cost? Does it improve efficiency? Or is it increasing revenue? Is it enhancing our customer experience? So, for instance, if you take Amazon's warehousing robotics, they employed robotics to support warehousing activities. If we use that as an example, by automating the order fulfillment process, what Amazon basically did was they reduced operating costs significantly. And by reducing operating costs, they were able to improve delivery speed. And if you look at this carefully, that's a technology investment that clearly creates what? Value. So if you are investing in a technology and it's leading to reduction of cost or increasing differentiation or leading to some kind of efficiency, then it means the technology is what? Is creating value. Then the second one is rare. Rare. And the question we ask here is this capability rare? Is the IT capability that I'm creating scarce or available to my competitors? You have to ask that. Because if every competitor has access to exactly the same technology, then it cannot be a source of what? Competitive advantage. So, for example, Google has built their AI infrastructure, and they have a huge computing capabilities that few organizations can match. That makes Google what? Google's capabilities rare. Then the second one is inimitable. Next, we ask the question, can competitors easily copy what we are doing? You see, some technologies can be purchased tomorrow. You get it, others will go and buy it. Others take years to build their technologies because these technologies may depend on experience, they may depend on organizational learning or customer relationship, a unique feature. So a typical example is, think about MTN. MTN has an extensive agent network. That particular MTN network agent network wasn't created in one night. It took a lot of years of investment, a lot of trust building, and a lot of operational experience. So a competitor cannot easily just copy MTN mobile money or their agent system. You can't do that. A competitor cannot copy it overnight because it is what? It is inimitable. It is difficult. Their rivals cannot easily replicate it. Then we have the last one, non-substitutable. So here we are asking the question, can competitors achieve the same outcome through another approach? If there is an easy alternative for your competitors, then the resource you are having is less strategic. For example, we all know how Netflix uses their recommendation engine to create a highly personalized viewing experience. So if I view a movie now, after watching the movie, they recommend based on how I like the movie or the fact that I viewed the movie. If someone also watches a different movie, he will get a different recommendation system. You get that? So because of that, because of their personalized viewing experience, their competitors can struggle to replicate them at the same scale. Eh? So we see that we have Amazon Prime, which is similar to Netflix, but they cannot easily copy what Netflix is doing. And so what I want you to understand that is that before applying any major or you as a manager or a professional, before you can approve any major IT investment, always ask this question. Will this capability still satisfy the VRIN test in 3 years' time? Will it be able to satisfy it? Will it be valuable? Will it be rare? Will it be inimitable? And will it be non-substitutable? Now, we have discussed the VRIN framework, which helps us to determine whether an IT resource can create a sustainable competitive advantage or not. Now, I want us to quickly go through this matrix. And this matrix takes the idea a step further by helping managers to prioritize their IT investment. So let's start with the bottom left quadrant, this one, the bottom left quadrant, which is commodity necessity. Here, we are interested in technologies that every organization needs. Here, we are interested in technology that every organization needs, such as email, cloud storage, payroll systems. They are essential for day-to-day operations. But these systems don't give a competitive advantage because everyone has access to them. So here, commodity necessity, every organization has got access to this. Then let's look at the top left quadrant, high cost commodity. The first one was commodity necessity. Every organization has got it. But here we have high cost commodity. This is where many organizations make costly mistakes, expensive mistakes. Because here they spend millions implementing systems like ERPs, enterprise resource planning systems. They spend a lot of money here. But because competitors have similar systems, they gain little or no strategic advantage. So here, you are spending a lot to put up a system, but other organizations already have that system. So you are not doing anything unique. Here, you are spending a lot, but it will not necessarily translate into what? Performance. Then we have the bottom right, which is emerging opportunities. Here, emerging opportunities. These are relatively affordable technologies, low cost. They are not expensive. And many organizations are not adopting them. They are not using them. Are you getting it? They are not expensive, but many organizations are not using them. You see, for this one, they are relatively affordable, and our competitors have not adopted it. So here, organizations that invest wisely here at this particular place, they can enjoy a first mover advantage. So all the time, you have to look at that technology, which is low cost and is emerging. You rely on it, you'll be able to get some first mover advantage. And then the last one is what? Strategic advantage. Here, we are interested in technologies that are valuable. They are also rare. They are also inimitable. They can copy it. They are difficult. They are rather difficult to copy and difficult to substitute. Examples include proprietary AI models, platforms ecosystems like Google, platform ecosystems like Amazon, mobile, MTN mobile money, and what have you. These resources provide durable competitive advantage. Here, this is where organizations like MTN are situated. So if you look at this particular IT typology, it basically tells you that if you are a manager, you should not be asking questions about how much does this technology cost. Don't be asking that question. You should rather be asking, will this technology create competitive advantage that my competitors cannot easily copy? And then you rely on it. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about your own organizations and then try to find out which of the quadrant best describe most of your IT investments. And then later on you can tell me, are you investing mainly in commodity technologies here, or you are investing in something else? Or you are building strategic advantage or strategic capabilities. Now, since we have seen how information system can create competitive advantage, I now want us to look at something else. I want us to look at digital disruption. And what do we mean by digital disruption? You see, digital disruption occurs when new digital technologies change how businesses are operating, how they are competing, and how they are even delivering value to customers. So if you have technologies which are causing sweeping changes into an industry, we will refer to that technology as what? A disruptive technology. You see, one of the biggest questions in business today is this. It's the question about why large and successful companies often struggle with other bigger with other smaller startups. And we refer to this as the innovator's dilemma. Why are large successful companies struggling to compete with smaller digital startups? This challenge is known as what? The innovator's dilemma. And that is, you can check it up here. Why incumbents struggle with digital? Why? Why are they struggling? They struggle because of the innovator's dilemma. And this concept was coined and introduced by Clayton Christensen. And now let's look at it carefully. If you look at this side, we have incumbent and then the digital challenger. What I want us to do is I want us to look at the items under incumbent and also have the dimensions in mind. So incumbents are basically established organizations with long histories, such as traditional banks like GCB, MTN, telecommunication companies, or even retailers. So on the right hand side are born digital challenges. They are not traditional organizations, but they rely heavily they rely heavily on the technology, and they are largely virtual entities. Typical examples are of born digital challenges are Uber, Airbnb, Netflix, and what have you. And you see, all of these companies I have mentioned, Uber, Airbnb, and Netflix, they were designed for the digital age from the beginning. So there are also local examples you can think about. Think about examples like Gigi. Gigi is an online platform. You hardly would find their office anywhere. Now, if you look at the first item, IT architecture, you notice that incumbents often rely on legacy systems that may be 10 or 30 years old. Because they are already there, they rely on technologies that are old, monolithic systems. And these systems are reliable, but they are difficult and expensive to change or modify. In contrast, if you look at the new organizations, startups, the digital startups that are coming up, they use cloud-based technologies and they are very flexible and they allow them to innovate faster. The second one is their cost structure. The traditional organizations have significant fixed costs. They have spent a lot on buildings and they have large workers, a huge number of workforce. And then if you look at the digital firm, they usually will have small numbers who are working, 2, 3 people who are working there. So usually their cost is what? Their operating cost is lower. Then we also have the third difference, which is data. Many incumbents, these old organizations, store data in separate systems. They are not able to integrate their systems because their systems are old, and it makes it difficult to do what? To analyze. But if you look at the digital systems of today, digital firms of today, they collect real-time data that is integrated and support AI, they support analytics and better decision making. Then we have another difference, the speed of change. When we say speed of change, what do we mean? If you look at traditional organizations, they may take months to launch a new product, several months to launch a new or even update their system. But if you look at the born digital firms, it is easy. They can release improvements any time, several times a day, several times in a year, several times in a month. And they are usually what? Very agile, very flexible. Then we also have uh, customers, how they serve their customers. The traditional incumbents tend to focus on individual transactions, whereas the digital firms, they have built continuous relationship with their customers by using data. So they are able to personalize what? Customer experiences. And then the last but not the least is the issue of what? Governance. The governance in the incumbents and the born digitals are different. They are different. Traditional organizations often have centralized decision-making systems, whilst with the Born Digital, it's usually distributed across different product teams and much more autonomous, other than the slow approval processes that are experienced under what? Under the incumbents. So what I want you to think about is, I want you to think about a question about traditional companies in Ghana or Africa that successfully adopted a digital disruption. And then what changes did they make? How did they remain competitive? Just think about it. And then maybe we can discuss later. Okay, so moving on and building on the incumbent example I gave, I want us to look at organizations to support our argument on the fact that incumbents or established organizations that struggle with digital disruption. And I want us to look at it in terms of what can they do about it? If they are struggling, what can they do? The incumbents do? What kind of response can they use? Fortunately, organizations have strategic options. So I want you to think about it in terms of not having a one size fits all approach or solution. So they can use several strategies to deal with the issue. They can use several strategies to answer the question about what can they do when there's a digital disruption and they are struggling. They can, one, build a separate digital unit. They can do that. Instead of trying to change the entire organization at once, incumbents can create an independent digital department or business that is free from all the old systems. They can also because they have been in existence for long and they have the capital, they can also buy the digital capabilities or even buy the digital firms, the small startups that are coming up. Then the third thing they can do, the third option is a platform and ecosystem strategy. How do they do this? They can do this by, instead of simply selling products, incumbent organizations can build digital platforms that can be used to connect different kinds of customers, different kinds of suppliers and partners. And they can do that. They can do that. And if they do that, what they will be doing is that they will be transforming from what? Being product oriented to what? To platform oriented. Then the fourth thing they can do is a very radical strategy. They can change their business model entirely. That's very radical. Here, we are arguing that the organization can fundamentally change how it creates and captures value. So if you had legacy systems, you were doing things physically, you can move on to an online platform completely and be a virtual entity. Now, let's all what we have discussed. I want us to bring it together in a real world example, the case of the DBS Bank in Singapore. This DBS Bank case is widely regarded as one of the most successful digital transformation stories in banking. So a little over a decade ago, what happened was that DBS was seen as a traditional bank, but today it is consistently recognized as one of the world's leading digital banks. But the question is, what did they do differently? What did they do differently to now be one of the world's best digital banks? What did they do? What they did was, first, the bank changed its mindset. And they did this through the CEO. The CEO said that DBS should think of itself as a technology company, but with a banking license. So to be able to succeed and compete very well in today's digitally competitive environment, organizations should think of themselves as what? Technology companies with whatever license they are holding. And this is what the CEO thought of and said. And when he said that statement, it changed the organization's culture because technology was no longer seen as a support function. They started seeing technology as central to their success. The second thing they also did was that DBS modernized its technology architecture by replacing outdated old systems with cloud-based systems and related platforms. And so this gave the bank the flexibility to innovate faster and collaborate with other fintech companies globally. Then the third thing they also did was that they invested heavily in data. And that is why we are treating data as part of this today's lecture. We are looking at data as what? A strategic advantage. So they invested heavily in data and they created a real-time data platform that supports more than 1,500 AI and machine learning models. And they use these models to help the bank detect fraud in the bank, help them to use it to assess risk, help them to personalize customer experience and make faster decisions. Okay, so to conclude with this example, what I want you to think about is if you were advising a traditional bank in Ghana, such as GCB Bank, or even ADB, or Consolidated Bank Ghana, which lessons from DBS would you recommend for them to adopt? Which one would you recommend to be the first they should do? And why will you do that? Remember that we indicated that the manager's first response was that they should change their mindset and see themselves as a technology company with what? With a banking license. If you are given the opportunity, will you do the same in GCB? Will you do the same with the consolidated bank? Now, let's move to the third part of our lecture. Here, in the previous session slides, we have seen how organizations can respond to what? Digital disruption. However, now I want to argue that having the right strategy alone is not enough. So first, we said that having the technology is not enough. You need a strategy. Now we are saying that having the strategy is not enough. Many organizations have excellent digital strategies, but they still fail because they lack effective governance. And that is what is bringing us to the third part, IT governance. So I want to start off by asking, what is IT governance? To put it simply, IT governance is a system that ensures that technology investments support organizations' goals. So IT governance basically helps us to answer important questions like who is doing what, who decides which technologies we have to put our money in, how do we ensure that this investment creates value, who is accountable when IT projects succeed, Who is accountable when IT projects fail? So we have to think of governance as the bridge between the business strategy and what? And the technology. Now, so going back a little bit, I just want to emphasize one thing. When we say IT governance, what do you mean? I am saying that IT governance is the system that ensures that our technology investments support the organization's business goals. That's it. So IT governance helps us to answer questions like who decides which technologies we should invest in? How do we ensure that the investments create value? Who should we blame when IT projects succeed or they fail? And so, having understood what IT governance is, I now want us to look at how organizations can ensure that technology supports business strategy. And we will use this particular framework called the IT governance alignment architecture. IT governance alignment architecture. And it shows that governance is about making the right decisions by the right people at the right time. So let's walk through the principles, 5 principles. The first principle is IT principles. IT principles are the high-level statements about the role of IT in the business. Who is deciding it? Is it the chief executives or the board? Then the second one is the IT architecture. This refers to how data, applications, and systems, they fit together. How do they fit together? And who is deciding that? That's the IT architecture. How the data, the applications, and the systems are fitting together. Managers decide whether systems should be integrated, whether to use cloud-based solutions or different applications. They should be well communicated. The third one is the IT infrastructure. This is the technological foundation of the organization. And this includes the hardware, networks, software, cloud platforms, and even security. Then the fourth one is business needs. You see, technology should never exist for its own sake. You can't just go and acquire technology for its own sake. Every IT solution must address a business problem. They must address a business problem. That's why business unit leaders play a critical role in identifying what technology is actually needed. And then the last one is the commitment, the IT investment. Every organization has limited resources. So difficult decisions must be made about where to do what, where to invest. The decisions about how much and where to invest in IT, that is what we refer to as IT investment. Who is going to decide that? Is it the chief financial officer? Is it the chief information officer or the business leaders? All these five components form the IT governance alignment architecture. Now, so far, what have we been doing? So far, we have discussed how organizations make IT decisions. Now, the next thing I want us to look at is how do we know whether those decisions are actually delivering value? And that is where the IT balance scorecard comes in. How do we know whether those decisions are actually delivering value? Many organizations make the mistake of measuring IT only through technical indicators, such as server uptime or the number of support tickets resolved, number of issues resolved. No. Look, senior managers should be more interested in one particular question. And the question should be, is IT creating value for the business? So that's the first one, business contribution. If you want to measure or understand whether the decisions we are making are actually delivering value, we have to ask, how does IT create value? Information system return on investment and the cost per transaction. Is information system enabling revenue growth? Is it leading to improvement in project delivery rates? Is it leading to reduction in risk? Yes, very important. So the first perspective is what? Business contribution. The second perspective is user orientation. You see, even the best technology will fail if people don't use it. The best technology, if the people don't use it, refuse to use it, it will fail. So to be able to measure the success, we have to use what? User satisfaction. Are they adopting it? Are they happy with it? What is the response time? And whether the users can access the services. So how do users perceive IT services? Then the third perspective is operational excellence. Here, we are focusing on the efficiency and reliability of the IT operations. So we ask the question, how efficiently does IT operate? Most of the time, when you are logging in, it will say you are already logged in or it's down. Operational excellence will be low. Then the last one is what? Future orientation. You see, technology is constantly what? Evolving so rapidly. So organizations must be ready and they must be prepared for tomorrow rather than only focusing on today. So we have to ask a question. Is IT building capability for tomorrow? Our IT unit or directorate, are their skills up to date? And what are they doing to ensure that the skills are up to date? Very, very critical for us. So I want to ask you a question. If you were evaluating the IT department in your organization, say UDS, which of these four perspectives do you think will receive the most attention? And which one will you overlook? And what will be the consequences of doing that? Now, after discussing the IT balance scorecard, I now want us to look at something else, another question. How do we answer the question of how do organizations put good IT governance into practice? IT governance, how do we put it into practice? One of the most widely used frameworks for doing this is the COBIT. COBIT. And COBIT simply stands for control objectives for information, control objectives for information and related technologies. Control objectives for information and related technologies. So to be able to answer the question, how do organizations put a good IT governance into practice? We can use the COBIT. We can use COBIT. So I want you to think of COBIT as a roadmap that can help organizations to ensure that IT creates value, to help organizations to ensure that they can manage their risk, and to help organizations to ensure that they can support business objectives. So let's briefly look at these 5 key domains. The first one is the governance of IT enterprise. And this is where senior management and the board provide direction. They evaluate the business needs, they set the priorities, and then monitor whether IT is supporting organizational goals. Look, basically what we are saying is that they answer the question, are we investing in the right technologies? Here, the first one. The CEOs, the council, the board of directors, they ask, are we investing in the right technologies? Then the second one is what? Alignment, planning, and organization. You see, once the direction has been set, here they ask about the direction. And so once the direction has been set, the organization develops what? Strategies. They plan their technology architecture, and then they identify the required skills and ensure that the IT initiatives align with the business priorities. When they have done this, then the third thing is either they build the technology, they acquire the technology, and then they implement it. So here, technology projects are executed by either building them, buying them, acquiring them, and then implementing them. And then the fourth domain, once the systems are implemented and operational, they must be managed efficiently. And this is where we deliver service, we service, and we provide service, and then we support. And then the last but not the least, we have to monitor, we have to evaluate, and we have to assess. Here, our emphasis is on one thing. You see, governance doesn't end once the systems are implemented. Organizations must do what? They must continuously ensure that there's performance, They are able to measure performance, they're able to assess risk, and they're able to ensure compliance with what? With regulations. So if you look at COVID, the key lesson from it is that IT governance is a continuous cycle. It's not a one-time activity. And so organizations must plan, they must implement, they must operate, they must monitor, and then they continuously do what? They continuously improve its capabilities. Now, this brings us to the last part of the lecture. We have talked about IT strategy, we have talked about digital disruption, and we have talked about IT governance. Now, I want us to talk about something most of you understand very, very easily and very well, data. And today we call it the most valuable resource in the digital economy. You have probably heard the saying that data is the new oil. The people are saying it, data is the new oil. This is a very popular phrase. And you see, we can all think of data as even more valuable than oil because when you use oil, it is consumed. But when you use data, you don't consume it. You often create even more data and even more value with the same data. So today, if you look at organizations like Google, Amazon, Netflix, and even MTN, our own MTN, if you look at them, they compete not simply because they have better technology, but because they know how to collect data, they know how to analyze the data, and they know how to use the data to make better decisions. That's how come they are competitively at an advantage than their rivals. So now let's look at how organizations transform raw data into strategic value. Collecting data alone is not enough. Well, that's what we start with. Having data or collecting is not enough. You see, the real value comes from analyzing that data and using it to make better decisions. And that's what all this course is about. And so if you look at this diagram, which is often called the analytics value ladder, you see, it is called a ladder because each step moves from simply understanding the past to making what? Intelligent decisions about what? About the future. So if you look at the first one, the first level is descriptive analytics here. And usually it answers questions about what happened. When we analyze this data, we are always able to tell what happened. How it happened. We sold this number of products. We made 20,000 profit. You see, that is the level, descriptive. Then the second level is diagnostic. It provides diagnostic analytics. And here we ask, why did it happen? So what happened? Why did it happen? So here we are interested in the root causes. Then when we move to the next level, we are looking at predictive analytics. Here we are looking backwards and we are asking, what is likely to happen next? What will happen in the future? And so if someone is looking for a loan, they will have to conduct credit scoring, and then they will be able to predict that you will pay or you will not be able to what? You will not be able to pay. Then moving up, we have prescriptive, which is the fourth one. And here we try to question, what should we do? What should we do? At this stage, analytics doesn't just predict outcomes. What should we do? We are not only predicting outcomes, we are recommending. And then the final stage, which is the highest, here systems don't just make recommendations. The systems themselves make decisions. And that is why that is what AI is currently doing in most of our systems. So the key message from this slide is that if you look at each step up the ladder, it requires better data, stronger capabilities to analyze the data, greater investment. But you have to understand that the strategic value is also what? Is also increasing as you move up the ladder. Now, if we use the VRIN framework we looked at, valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-substitutable, we can apply it to what? The concept of data as a strategic asset. So that way we can ask questions in terms of how valuable the data is. Does the data reduce costs? Then we can also ask questions about the rarity of the data. Is the data hard to obtain? Can competitors replicate it? Is it replicable? And then is there an alternative path that our competitors can use to acquire the same data? So we can apply the VRN test to data as a strategic asset. Here, you see that what we have done so far is that we have established that data can be a strategic asset. But when we say it can be a strategic asset, what do we really mean? How can organizations actually make money from data they gather? How can we make money from the data you gather? You see, data does not only create value when it is transformed into business value or new revenue. What we want to look at here is that we want to look at the different ways how firms can create revenue from the data. And the first one I want us to look at is direct data monetization. You can sell the data. Organizations collect data and they sell the data. They can also sell the insights from the data or the analytical reports from the data. And many organizations, such as Bloomberg, they do that. They sell financial data. They sell the telecoms are also selling our data to what? To governments and to urban planners. And we have all been receiving text messages from unknown organizations, and we wonder how they got that. It is because they have sold our data. Then the second one is indirect data monetization. Here, with this particular strategy, which is indirect data monetization, you see, this one is what is used by many organizations. They are using the data to improve their own products. They rely on the data to improve their services, to improve pricing, and to improve their operations. So internally, they are improving their products, they are improving their services by capturing value internally. And then the third one, which is data-powered new products. You can build entirely new products by learning from your data. You can build new business models. You can bring up new revenue streams by by relying on your data as what? As a strategic asset. So you can actually use monetization strategies to create value from your data by directly selling it, by using the data to improve your products, or by building new business models from your data. Yes. Now, as we have discussed in the last slide, that data is one of the most valuable assets an organization can have. However, we have to note that more value can come from if that we use the data in a responsible way. Because the more data organizations are able to collect, the more data they are able to use, the more important it becomes to manage that data in a responsible way. So when we are managing the data, we have to take note of certain things. We have to ensure that we protect individual right to control their data. Data privacy, very important. When we use the data to train models, we have to understand that the data should be used in a fair manner. Because you see, artificial intelligence is only as good as the data. Because AI, we use data to train AI models. And so the AI is as good as the data. So if the historical data contains biases, the AI system would unintentionally discriminate because it also contains the biases. One other ethical issue we can consider is transparency. Increasingly, there are many customers and even the regulators who want to understand how data decisions are made. So, for instance, if an IT system rejects your loan application or even deny your insurance claim, some people will expect you to have the organization to provide an explanation. And so the organizations, therefore, needs to find a way to ensure that the systems are transparent and explainable. And that is where we often talk about data systems as black boxes. They should not be black boxes. They should be able to help in explaining. In all of this, one principle I consider very critical is what? Security. Organizations have the legal and ethical responsibility to protect the information they collect. And all of this feed into data. Privacy, data being used to train AI models, data transparency,